And we are back.
For more marvelous adventures to fool you guys with, because we still can't beat this thing.
Excelsior!
Excelsior and all that good stuff. I mean, already, yeah.
Kill Stan the man?
First 15 seconds, though, I can't. I already dropped
Sam! I didn't even catch that, technically.
But yeah, we're back here to, give you guys some more Hollow Knight. We haven't forgotten about this game. It's just we've been trying to cover a bunch of the games that you guys have requested.
Yeah.
Halloween was super jam-packed, and we just haven't had time to practice. But now we're gonna give you guys a whole week of this stuff, because we have not forgot about you couchlings who love our Hollow Knights.
But Stan, you were talking about Stan Lee.
But we were gonna talk. Now we're gonna talk about Stan Lee.
Well, I said Excelsior.
Yeah, Excelsior. We were saving a series where more of you guys were watching, or also more timely to the event. Timely comics. But yeah, for most of you guys that I'm sure most people know, Stan Lee unfortunately passed away, but at 95, man, that is a long-willed life. There's been some great memes of Drake where it's like, Stan Lee died yesterday, and there's just the hand that goes up and goes like, Stan Lee actually decided, I'm done. I've done everything you could possibly do in one lifetime. Moved on to the next one. Seen some great little pictures of Jack Kirby, who is one of the co-collaborators, one of the co-creators in the Marvel Universe, along with Stan.
Okay.
Just like on the Silver Surfer surfboards, like, hey, you ready for a new adventure, Stan?
That's pretty tight.
That's pretty. That choked me up a little bit. I was like,
who is the in your room? You have a kind of memoir type thing of an artist.
Oh, so
that was the Looney Tunes, but like, who was that?
That is Friz Freeling. He was one of the directors. I actually got that for my 9th birthday from my uncle.
Really? And
I've had it ever since. It's been one of my favorite things. Friz Freeling's actually not my favorite director when it comes to Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. He's done some of my favorite shorts, specifically. God, what is it? It's the one 99 Bugs, and it's like 99 bugs or something like that. It's where Bugs Bunny is trying to invade a castle inhabited by Yosemite Sam and a dragon. It's one of my favorite shorts.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
But Friz Freeling did a lot of stuff. He was most of all the Sylvester and Tweety shorts were his. He was the lead director on that. Chuck Jones did some Tweety stuff as well.
Yeah.
Mostly in his early work, from what I remember. But my two kind of favorite directors when it comes to Looney Tunes are Bob Clampett. I mean, I love all of them, but Bob Clampett and Chuck Jones are probably my favorites.
Yeah.
Chuck Jones is notorious for rabbit season, duck season. Chuck Jones is probably the most famous one. Bob Clampett did more of the rubber hose stuff, so more of the Tex Avery really gaggy things, and he left Warner Brothers.
It was all physical gags, right?
Yeah.
For the most part back then?
Yeah, he really loved to push the form, very much Ub Iwerks kind of stuff where he really squashed and stretched stuff and really pushed it. He's one of Chris Falusi's biggest inspirations. Chris Falusi created Ren and Stimpy, but unlike Bob Clampett, Chris Falusi's kind of a dick from what I've heard. From people
Is he the maker of
Ren and Stimpy?
Is that where the controversy was back then, where it was like he created a bad workforce and like sexual shit or something like that?
I've talked to people that directly worked for him in Canada, and they're like, dude was fucking insane.
Yeah.
Just, he was not a pleasant man to work for.
Okay.
But not all creative types are. But regardless,
that doesn't give you guys a fucking excuse.
Regardless, I got that, my uncle got that from the Warner Brothers store way back in the day, because they used to have it in the mall around here, and there used to be malls everywhere.
Give a little context. What's the picture of?
So the picture's of, it's an animation table, and it has all the Looney Tunes characters around it that Friz Freeling worked on for his shorts, and they're all kind of crying, and they're all memorializing Friz Freeling. And they did a couple of them. I think they did one for every big creative force. They did one for Friz, they did one for Chuck, they did one for Bob Clampett. Oops. And I'm forgetting one of the other ones. He did a lot of shorts with the dog and Foghorn Leghorn, and I really love his stuff too, but he was not short-lived, but he was more in the 10-year gap. Friz and Chuck were
lifetime.
They were kind of almost lifetimers for Warner Brothers. They were there for the longest period out of the rest of them.
Okay.
There's about like 5 or 6 really influential Looney Tunes directors. One being Tex Avery was big too, but he kind of flipped around a lot, but he was really big at Warner Brothers in the beginning, like the 1920s, 1930s.
Yeah.
He helped design Bugs Bunny before he had his redesign. He was one of the first people to have Daffy Duck in one of his cartoons. He did Porky Pig. He did a lot of Porky Pig shorts back in the day.
Did he design? He didn't design the original Porky Pig that we were talking about recently.
It was in his shorts.
The super fat one?
I don't know if he did the character designs, but they were animated in his kind of over the top style. If you've seen those clips on the internet of the memes of the wolf who like sees the girl in the red dress and like his face
the eye
squashes
popping.
and starts eye popping. That's Tex Avery, guys.
Okay.
He kind of invented that style. He's the one who really pushed it. That's why, you know, you have that kind of whole subset culture from Ren and Stimpy and all that other stuff, where they're just really big. And how far can we push this?
It's cartoons too. Like they're meant to overemphasize certain traits.
Exactly.
So, because like, didn't you have kind of like a inability to do highly detailed stuff back in the day? So you had to make hands into gloves because you had limited color palette and stuff like that.
Exactly. So the whole reason why they did gloves was in black and white is because they had to distinguish it. And the problem is, since most of those characters, all they had was a 3-tone color palette, pretty much black, white, and gray. And they had slightly different versions of gray, but for the most part, they didn't have that much delineation between those.
Yeah.
The film wouldn't pick up as much of like the small differences. So
kind of like how Mario ended up having suspenders or such iconic stuff because they had a limited.
Animation is pretty much problem solving.
Yeah.
More people have said that, but I've heard Bruce Timm, who created Batman, the animated series, along with
Eric Radomski and Alan Burnett and Paul Dini and all those other guys. He always says animation's problem solving, and it really is, because when you're working on it, you have an idea, but you can't always hit that idea, and you need to make compromises and make smart decisions. And
Based
that's
off
how
of what you're given, the tools
better
you're
what you're given, the tools you have.
Especially back in the day of cellulose, right?
Yeah, but even today, like it's still so much of like when you do designs, even for Hollow Knight, they made his legs black because it made it easier to animate. There's a reason behind everything that's in his design. There's a reason why a lot of his stuff is simple, because they know we're gonna have to animate him more than any other character. We want to make sure that his design is simple enough that when we do a frame, we don't have to worry about people like, oh, it's off model or it's off this or yada yada yada.
It needs to be translatable on a visual medium, especially something that's as fast as Hollow Knight.
Yes. Whereas this guy, they can add a little bit more detail because they know, well, he's not gonna
walk as much. He kind of chitters around.
He's gonna kind of chitter around. We know what arena he's gonna be in, but Hornet and the Knight, they're all made to be very simplistic for a reason.
Yeah. But we started this conversation
about Stan Lee, and I'm kind of getting back to that because one thing that I've been trying to iterate that there's been a couple people that have tried to dampen on Stan Lee's his contributions and his legacy to the industry, because a lot of this controversy comes out now is most people know Stan as the face of Marvel.
Yeah.
And he has been since basically the 70s because he was the editor-in-chief. He was originally a writer back in the 60s, and he's been with Marvel for a long, long time. But a lot of people will say, oh, the creator of the Marvel comics. And some people take...
He's not the creator.
He's the co-creator. But some people take ire with that because back in the day, Stan was more than willing to take credit for his contributions.
Yeah.
And while he didn't dismiss other people's work, he wouldn't dismiss Jack Kirby and he wouldn't really dismiss Steve Ditko. He would still talk about them and, with high respect, and Joe Buscemi and all those other guys. But so many comic creators over the years, and especially artists, have been marginalized over the decades, and their contributions have not been met. There's so many stories of comic book artists who have created famous characters like Ghost Rider, who then are dying of cancer and don't have enough money to pay for anything. Now Marvel's making billions of dollars off this character, and they're stuck there with nothing. So that's why a lot of comic creators now don't really, after they make it in the industry, they kind of leave Marvel. They go make their own stuff because Robert Kirkman owns The Walking Dead. He gets all the proceeds from that. The artist that worked on that gets the proceeds from those comics. They don't have to worry about a big comic company taking their IP and them never seeing the light of day from it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not really that different from starting at some place that'll give you your footing into an industry, and then going off and making your own stuff.
And it's a privilege to work on those characters, but if you're working for that company, you probably don't want to go through them if you want to publish your own character, because you're not going to keep the rights. And that's just, that for now, but the problem was back when comic book creators were making that stuff, the characters weren't that popular. So, I mean, even the creators of Superman, they had to sue before DC would give them money. And these creators aren't asking, we get it, we don't deserve everything, we know that, but hey, we created this character, can't you throw us a little back? We know you're making millions off of our work, and we get that it was work for hire, but come on, he's the mascot of your entire company. And there is some controversy when it comes down to like, well, they're the great-great-grandchildren. It's like, okay, that's less. Come on, pay the artists. Don't undermine their work. And a lot of people felt slighted because there are other creators such as Bob Kane, who helped co-create Batman along with Bill Finger. He was more than happy to sue and get the full rights of saying, I'm the sole creator of Batman, which couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
But back in the 70s and 80s, Stan was maybe a little bit more, but he was a salesman, he was a showman, and he wanted to promote the comics and promote the work, and while he wouldn't take away from those other creators, people thought he took too much of the limelight because Jack Kirby, who basically, along with Steve Ditko, co-created the Marvel Universe. Jack Kirby did the art for the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the first design, I believe, of Daredevil, but I think Bill Everett might have redesigned it after that. I'm not sure. Steve Ditko was Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. Jack Kirby was Silver Surfer, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man.
So the controversy is that they were like, oh.
They were upset because Jack Kirby died in 1998, I believe, 1995, around that early 90s era.
Yeah.
Right before the whole boom of all this stuff happened. And Stan was kind of the only one getting credit. And it's not so much, I think, that people are mad at Stan. They're upset at the industry heads that allowed these creators to kind of die in seclusion and kind of live that Van Gogh life where it's like, I mean, yeah, they're famous, but they have pennies to their name. Like, it's not fair. There should be more justice in the world because so much of when they were first writing the comics, Stan would write them. He would write the scripts and he would work with the writers more often. But eventually, Stan was writing so many books for it. He created the Marvel way, the Marvel strip. And basically what would happen is Stan would come to Jack Kirby, he would come to Steve Ditko and like, hey, here's my idea for the book. Peter Parker is going to fight the Green Goblin, but at the same time, he's dealing with his mother, his Aunt May, who's in the hospital. And that would be it. He'd have maybe a couple more lines than that, but then the artist would go in and he would just do the whole thing. He would do all the other stuff because, you know, Stan was working on, let's say, like 10 books at that time. He doesn't have time to write an entire script for every single one. He would trust the artists who were his creative equals to do the work. And in subsequent years, you know, I've never heard an interview where Stan has taken credit. He's always praised the artist. After it became a thing where he realized, oh man, I wasn't giving these guys enough credit. I feel bad that even though he wasn't discrediting them, he wasn't making enough light on it because he was so happy to finally finally be appreciated for his work. And I think the biggest thing to take away from it is, yeah, Stan didn't create Marvel, but he is one of the 3 co-creators of that universe. And along with Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, he has changed pop culture forever. There's not many people like Stan Lee. And part of it, too, is even though Jack and Steve were both creative forces, they're not really salesmen like Stan. Stan has a magnetic personality.
Yeah.
He draws people and he's a showman. Whereas a lot of us artists, we're kind of not. We need those people like Stan to push our work. And without Stan, Marvel wouldn't exist because not to mention he was the editor as well.
So they're mad at Stan for taking the limelight into account which he was like, oh, I feel kind of guilty for. We need to change this. Yeah. And then once he did, people were still mad at him because he acted as a PR guy.
There's a small portion,
not a PR, but
it's
like
a
hype man type thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's only a very small culture. It's not very big. There's like, if you were to take the entire Marvel fan base, we're all like, yeah, man, we fucking love Stan, but man, we really wish Jack Kirby in his lifetime could have lived to see all of his characters become this. Because eventually Marvel, out of respect, paid Stan Lee a certain amount of money every month. He was like one of the only few people to get that. And people feel, I think more so than anything, they're mad at companies like Marvel and DC for not respecting its creators back in the day. And I think there is a push.
So the figurehead is Stan Lee, so they're like, okay, well, you fucked up. And in a way, he kind of did, but at the same time...
He was such a good person, though. Okay. Like, the more and more you learn about Stan, he was so much about equality and the things
From what I heard, he was a lot,
the things, like, someone tried to say, like, Stan's racist. It's like, Go read his soapboxes.
Wait, what about his soapbox in 68 or 67 or something like that, where he was like, we can fight it, and that's a superhero journey right there, just to choose to fight inequality and stuff. And I'm like, back then, that's a lot easier. It's a lot harder to say than now. You know, not that it's any less right or wrong.
And that's another thing where it's like, it's such a small, minor group of people, too. It's not really to be taken, because there's so much evidence of like, Stan introduced Black Panther. He introduced, you know, Power Fist and Iron Fist and Power Man together, like a black and white superhero together. I believe that was him that did that. But, I mean, he was the editor, so he approved of a lot of that shit. So he was always for diversity, and one of his biggest things was Spider-Man. He's even, you know, he's come out and said, like, man, it wasn't the idea that, you know, anyone could be Spider-Man, but that's so great that, you know, Indian, black, white, you know, it doesn't matter who you are, underneath that mask, it could be anybody. So anybody.
There's like 5 or 6 iterations. There's Spider-Man, right? Minus like one-offs and stuff like that.
So Marvel's got like its whole multiverse like DC, so there's thousands of different Spider-Man.
Yeah, but none of them are written. You could say like, oh, there's a black or an Indian Spider-Man or an Asian Spider-Man, but to not represent it into something that somebody could be like, wow, I connect with that, and I feel like this represents me, and I feel empowered by it. It doesn't. It's kind of like J.K. Rowling doing a lot of her stuff, where like, oh, I never meant for Hermione to not be black type of thing, and it's kind of like, it seems like you're taking credit for the least amount of effort.
That stuff when that stuff happens, I always think of it this way. Look, I'm white, right? So typically, no I'm not. I'm actually
You're Sam.
I'm actually purple. So when I like to create characters, I like to create purple characters. And they're always purple. That's the only thing about it. Like, I think the biggest part is for creators, you don't want to jump into another pretend to know how to write characters of different backgrounds other than yourself. So typically when you write characters who have similar backgrounds to you, and then you try and branch off.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to a main character, because you know how they're going to speak, how they're going to relate. You don't want to pander to another audience. I think is the biggest thing.
I think pandering's fucking. I hate pandering.
Yeah, that's why.
And like, even on a non-race level, I just hate pandering.
Well, I mean, that's why I do think it's important that Black Panther.
I hate what is it called? Not fanboying, but what is it? What do they do in anime? The fan servicing.
Fan servicing?
I hate fan servicing because it's just pandering to the fucking crowd. It's like, come on, you don't need to do this. You could be better than this.
No, for sure.
You know?
But I think it's important, like, when people make a big deal about Black Panther having a black dark, it's like, I do think that's important because so much of that character is rooted in kind of the history of African Americans and Africans, that we should have someone that knows what it's like, or at least has a slight idea of what it's like to grow up in that culture, so they can just portray the character in an accurate way.
You know, I don't think
it's not. You don't have to.
No, what I'm saying is, I don't think I've realized how important that was until you just said it and explained it that way. Because I was kind of in the same thing, like, what does it matter what the race of the person is if the person is skilled and then can make a movie that's great, then it doesn't matter what race it is. But I didn't think of it in the aspect of, like, approving or disapproving of dialogue choices or, like, situations and be like, hey, I think it'd be better this way because based off of my context, based specifically off of race, like, that makes a lot more sense now.
I think at the end of the day, the best stories are the stories that are personal, and that you can feel the writer or you can feel the artist behind.
Passion.
Exactly. So it's like, if you're pandering, people are gonna see it. But if you're actually writing from the heart and writing from your gut,
or experience,
which is what Stan would do when he was creating all those characters back in the '60s, along with Jack and Steve and all the other artists. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think some people take it too far. They're like, no, it has to be this way. It's like, it doesn't have to. But if you can find a director that maybe is from the same background as that character, they're gonna bring a deeper depth to it than if I was to write Black Panther. Like, I wouldn't know where to begin. Like,
I feel you, yeah.
Because, like, it doesn't have to be the way. Because, like, that'd be stupid. It'd be dumb if you're saying, like, no white person ever can write about an Asian character. It's like, no, that doesn't make sense. There's so many good writers. Just like I would never say an Asian writer can never write about African in character or a black man or woman. It's like, no, like, they totally can, but there's a deeper level that someone of that culture they can get to, and that's just kind of that's what it really comes down to.
Like, I don't know a whole lot about specific other races without naming any of them, But like, I wouldn't trust me to give the most authentic version of any kind of racial aspect beyond the things that I understand personally. I couldn't even give like all aspects of white culture or history or what people have gone through.
Something that's really interesting about that is I was watching a documentary from CNN on the 90s by Tom Hanks and a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
And they specifically started talking about rap in the 90s and how when Eminem came on the scene, people were like, who is this boy? Like, how is he trying to steal our stuff? And they started realizing, oh no, he's actually just telling his story in like a similar format.
He's lived in typical poverty aspect of.
He's telling it from the aspect of
what a
the
lot of
marginalized,
and marginalized people have gone through.
You know, the poor white people, because like they exist. Poor people exist in every coloring.
Oh yeah. Oh fuck.
So there's no reason that Eminem couldn't. And Eminem's talented. And now it's like it doesn't matter. People are like, yeah, Eminem's great. He's fantastic.
I actually listen to a lot of not a lot of white rappers, but like I actually listen to it and I don't actually think like, oh, they're white or black anymore. Whereas typically I think before with Eminem in that case was like, oh shit, this is the white rapper, you know?
Yeah.
Not that it's a big deal to you or I, but it is important to other people, and it shouldn't matter whether, the history of it is, I'm gonna fucking heal up here.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little distracted right now.
I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is like if a story is personal, it's great. You need to write from your gut, and you shouldn't try and pander to your audience because they're always gonna see it.
Yeah.
Don't
like, share, and
force
subscribe.
yourself. Yeah.
Sorry,
but
pandering.
back to Stan. I was at first like, damn. I kind of knew
dumb.
that it was gonna happen soon.
No, he was not.
So
in the
much
best place.
so much of the end of his life. I mean, his wife that he'd been married to for decades. It was the love of his life. They were married like 50 plus years or something extraordinary. And she passed away early last year. And usually when that happens, when you have a partner for that long,
generally it seems to be like that, right?
It tends to go that way.
Or at least the ones you majorly.
And you just saw him at cons and stuff,
about.
and he stopped doing appearances. Like, he's tired, and you could just tell it in his face.
Sleep, Stan, sleep.
And earlier this year, Steve Ditko also passed away, who co-created Spider-Man, and it's kind of sad because Steve, they found him in his apartment by himself with no family, and it's just really sad to see that that's kind of where his life went, whereas Stan's was he had some, controversy and some things that went wrong near the end with like how people were taking advantage of him.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the last half of Stan's life, he was in constant, approval, and people loved him, and for good reason too. So I think that's also where some of the ire comes from. They're like how Steve Ditko died. But also part of it is Steve, from what I understood, was more of a recluse. He was more seclusive.
What was it called? Introverted?
He was more introverted. He kept to himself.
Yeah.
And he didn't want the limelight. He didn't want that stuff. He just liked drawing. And that's fine. Different people have different strokes.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, like, man, Stan was he seemed like such an awesome person who genuinely seemed like a great individual through and through.
I would definitely say from what I know of him, which is very little, that he was a positive influence on the world. So definitely, like, we could remember him fondly. Whether your idea of past transgressions is one way or the other. I think overall, from what I've heard, he's a generally positive influence.
Yes.
And that's what we need.
We could always use more people that are more positive in the world. And not to mention, it's just people are complicated. No person is perfectly spot clean.
Oh fuck yeah! I've sent a ton of
Everyone's
shit
gonna make
regret.
mistakes. Everyone's not gonna be this perfect Christ-like figure.
Yeah.
We're human beings.
If they are, I don't trust them because they're hiding something.
Let's not make Stan out to be a race. Like, did he make mistakes? Yeah, we all make mistakes.
Especially when you're living in such a public avenue, you know? It's not that you make mistakes more because you're in a public avenue, but
you're more likely
they're
to.
more under a magnifying glass.
Yes, exactly. There's a magnifying glass when you're that
A lot of people
popular.
make mistakes. And like even before YouTube and stuff, like I've said stuff that I'm like, fuck, like that wasn't cool. I was ignorant.
That was fucking stupid.
Like, that
Why
was dumb.
would I say
regret that instantly.
Yeah.
But when you're always under the microscope of fame and stuff, it's a lot easier to see it. Whereas other people, it's like, let what is it? Let he who has without sin throw the first stone.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, right? It's like everyone's fucked up or done something bad that they regret.
And there just always seems
Some
to be
have done it way more worse and way more publicly, and it's not an excuse.
There seems to be a subculture, especially amongst the Twitter crowd and amongst the Reddit crowd, where they're just always looking for something.
Well, they just need something to
tear
talk about,
someone to tear someone down, just a peg, just to take them off their pedestal, to make them not seem so great, to kind of demean them and find their one flaw. And she goes, "Why do you got to do that?"
I wouldn't say all of Twitter.
No,
That's just
no.
people,
I said a
man.
subset. So a subset of people on the internet just feel the need to tear others down instead of just saying like, "Yeah, he was a flawed individual. We're all flawed.
Yeah,
that's life. No one is, no one's perfect. Hate to break it to you guys, especially us.
Especially us.
I'm
gonna make a lot of mistakes. I'm saying it now, not as an excuse, but as a definitive thing.
I make mistakes on the
I talk on the channel. I'm gonna say something stupid.
I'm gonna say tons of things stupid.
But I'm gonna try and make every effort to fix it.
Yeah.
Much like and a lot of it is like stuff that you don't know too at the time or not aware of before you realize how important it is. God damn it. Yeah, I'm focusing on talking and not focusing on.
Well, I can keep talking.
No, you're fine. I think we're getting close.
We're getting close.
As soon as we get done with this guy, small break. I need to refill my Wawa anyway.
But yeah, it's really sad that Stan passed. At the same time, he was 95. He lived a long,
good life. So
he lived a long, good life. It's sad that the end of his life was kind of a little bit filled with so much controversy.
Yeah.
But man, at first it didn't hit me. But I was like, as soon as I saw it pop something on my phone, I was like, oh, the BBC popped up, and all I saw was Stan. I was like, he fucking died, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And I was just like,
some people were asking like, what did he die of? I was like, 95. He was 95. He died of being 95.
Yeah, he died of being 95.
I don't think everyone realized that he was 95, but at the same time, it was like
he had so much energy.
You knew he was old.
Yeah. It was really sad. And at certain moments, like I worked on like a little tribute from just like something super small, like 30 minutes. But yeah, and then it hit me at a certain point. It's like, man, like Kevin Smith said, he's like, I'm living in a Stan Lee-less world. This is weird.
Yeah.
You think about it, it's like he's been there for your entire life, and for me, I grew up watching the cartoons where he'd do voiceover. I still remember the first time I saw Stan Lee and knew who he was because they animated an animated cameo appearance on Spider-Man the Animated Series where Spider-Man is hopping through universes.
Yeah.
And he gets to the real world and he goes web slinging with Stan Lee. And that was the first time I saw him, and immediately I was like, ew, I like this guy. I don't know why, but he seems genuine. And the more you would hear about him, the more you would learn about him. You just went, man, he made mistakes, but he was a good dude. He tried to be good. He tried to make better things in the world. And you read his soapbox and listen to his interviews from way back in the day, where he would talk about how we need more diversity, we need to represent people, and we need to be fair and just to others and treat them as they would want us to treat each other. It's just like, and he would avoid politics, he would avoid religion.
God damn it.
I'm not going to talk about religion. I'm going to talk about human beings. I'm going to talk about humanity and making, how can we all be better and treat each other nicer.
Yeah.
Like,
nice, got him.
I think that was the saddest thing is, man, it sucks that we lost such a creative force, but it really sucks that we lost such a nice person in the end.
Yeah. So how about we end this here? I think that was a nice little memorial for Stan. I know it was close to your heart personally as like an inspiration for everything. We'll come back and we'll keep trying to get through Pantheon 5, guys. I'm pretty rusty, so don't have high hopes, but
we're gonna give it our best.
We're gonna give it our best. Yeah. I think I've been doing okay so far.
I think you've been doing all right.
Noski's gonna give me trouble, but we'll see you guys next time. Beep bop boop.
That God is just watching, going like, I can't wait till he dies. It's gonna be glorious.
I can't wait until he dies.
I'm gonna take my knife. I'm gonna walk up behind him and I'm gonna skewer him.
Not that I'm sick of Hollow Knight, but it would be nice to put it to bed.
It would be nice because then we'd have time until Hornet comes out because we know that's coming eventually.
Yeah.